The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Okay, well, good morning, everybody. This is CJ, and I'm sure my co-host is here.
Yes, I'm here. Well, we already said welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk, but we crashed.
Yeah, so we're going to start the show again. It's been
COVID-19 TV, and we have to start that. So, CJ, you want to go over your kudos to a city councilor and about the council meeting?
Oh, yes. Like I said, I very rarely give kudos to the Fall River City Council, but I greatly appreciated how they handled yesterday's meeting. They handled it with a Zoom program, which I had sent in my letter to the City Council during a citizens input period. And they were very succinct in their handling. They did not go like they usually do, and everyone's got to be heard and everyone's got to be seen. I mean, they answered appropriate questions and they handle things. Sometimes, as they said, I'm sorry, I may be repeating this because it's difficult to hear everybody, but they did very well in handling that meeting. I've got to give, props to Cliff Ponte. It was very interesting to see. The atrium had 3 city councilors: Cliff Ponte, Chris Peckham, and Pamela Liberté-LeBeau. Mary Sahady was also there, and so was the mayor. And I believe there was a few other people. Some had actually left. But it was very interesting to see them work in that environment because this is the first time they've ever done it. This may be a new thing for Fall River to start using remote options for meetings, and it wouldn't be a bad thing. Now, if Cliff would take this one step further and allow the citizens to do their own citizens input using the Zoom program, because he has control. He can mute those people so they can't say anything afterwards, and they can leave, just like Michael Dion did. After he was done, he left the meeting. So they don't have to stay there the entire time. And Cliff can actually shut off their cameras and shut off their mics on his end using the system control. But one of the things that was interesting, which I didn't I don't think the city councilors realized, was they were private messaging back and forth between each other. And as we do here sometimes when we're doing the show, we send our host a couple of messages and we make some comments, but their comments pop up on the bottom of the screen. You got to be careful, people. You got to be careful. Anything can happen. Anything can be said. So,
and they were reminded of that.
Yes, they were. Cliff turned around and said, "Hey, people, remember, if you're sending private chat messages, people can see them on the screen."
We will refer to that, but we have to get back to that our last show. I guess some people were upset because you were talking about the pseudo parade or whatever.
Correct.
And social distancing and exposing people. And I guess some people took umbrage, and of course they used the rationalization that they were doing something for the kids to make them feel better. But giving them COVID-19 is not getting them better. Everybody has their own right. But I very rarely agree with Gina Raimondo, but I have to admit that evening after we talked about that, Gina Raimondo said a very profound thing. She said, let's not go out and try to find excuses not to do what we should be doing to prevent the spread of this virus. And as much as it's as nice a gesture as that is, to have a parade for kids, but we've seen birthday parties and stuff with people standing across the street and driving cars by and honking the horns, but not actually physically being close to people. So they can rationalize it any they want. It's just my opinion. But it's not only my opinion, it's the opinion of all the doctors who are on ad nauseum every day talking about social distancing being the only way. And I saw this morning on the news that another case of the virus has been found in a Fall River firefighter. So, look, the reality is they can say what they want. It's a nice gesture, and I understand that. But maybe we have to teach our children that sometimes you have to make sacrifices sacrifices for the greater good. And you can't always get everything you want, and you can't always be happy. Nobody's happy to be stuck in the house and social distance. So the reality is, I don't think it was appropriate. That's my opinion. They can say whatever they want, but the fact is that and I don't have to tell you this, CJ, because you're a healthcare professional. You cannot disinfect 100% of anything. You can't kill 100% of the bacteria, 100% of the viruses. You can't kill basically 100% of anything. And the reality is, no matter how cautious they were, when you actually put people in a vehicle in close proximity, you're taking a risk we should not be taking. And the people who were taking that were people who the community looked to for guidance. So you're not setting a good example. As Gina said, let's not all look for excuses to violate the social distancing thing. Because as you said, I think you and I were discussing it the other day, you were telling me about some family who had an Easter dinner and they had cars parked all over their lawn. So their excuse was, well, we're not going to do a market. We're all family and we're all going to get together in our house for an Easter dinner. Well, I understand that, and people want to do that. But you can't if you really want to stop the spread of this thing. As a matter of fact, one of the anchors on Channel 10 lost her mother in a nursing home for the COVID virus, and she could not even say goodbye to her mother or see her mother before she passed. She saw her via Skype, but unfortunately, we have to try. I mean, I even went to the store for the first time with a mask and gloves on yesterday, just to kind of and people are wearing more and more masks and stuff, but they were upset and at the fact that we made a comment, but I feel that the follow-up. Look, I don't think it was appropriate. They can think it's appropriate, and because they wanted to make the kids happy, that's an excuse. That's a rationalization. That you jeopardize people by being in close proximity, and we all do. There's no, as much as you'd like to hug or maybe strangle some people, you can't get that close anymore. So I just had to get that in, because I know there were a lot of links and a lot of commentary on that, but as Gina Raimondo said so profoundly, let's not look for excuses to violate the protocols.
I hear you there. I'm being asked why they can't watch us at this point in time. It's interesting to find that I said the exact same thing in my letter for Citizens Input yesterday, that we look for excuses to not do what's right. And it's got to stop somewhere. It really has to stop somewhere. Now, I hope these people can understand that we're not saying that it wasn't a good idea. It just wasn't a good idea given the situation we're in. Fall River has never had an Easter parade of any type. So this is the first one that I know of. I mean, maybe back in the 1800s we had one, but I don't remember any in my lifetime. I know you don't remember one in your lifetime. I've spoken to several people who are in their 80s and 90s, and they don't remember them in their lifetime. So that tells you something. So why they felt this was necessary right now, I'm not sure. They wanted to give the kids something to smile at. That's great. But not all kids had something to smile at. A lot of kids were upset because they weren't able to participate in it, like they do with the Christmas parade. And they felt that they should have been able to be in that parade, whatever they want to call it. And, so again, you have both sides of the coin that you're not looking at. And that's a shame. That really was a shame.
Well, and it's the people who were doing it. They're supposed to be the people who are setting the example. And as they said, don't look for it. It's a rationalization excuse. The reality is that, look, there have been people, we see it every day on the news. We see people setting hearts along the road or painting pictures or people doing things and social distancing. And I'm also a firm believer in that. Some people can disagree. The Rapping Cotton Brigade can disagree with me all they want. I truly believe that children also learn have to learn something that all Buddhists know, because the first precept of Buddhism is to accept the fact that all life is suffering. Suffering is an integral part of life. And they have to realize they can't always be happy and smiley, and you have to do things during your lifetime that are not fun. They're disagreeable. They're not. They're something that you have to do, and we can't. And that's the reason that I've used it as an example numerous times. Why World War II was won by our greatest generation, because our greatest generation suffered through the Great Depression.
Right.
Nobody could make them happy. The fact is, they had to stand in bread lines. They didn't have food. They had their electricity shut off. And unfortunately, nobody's saying that's a good thing. But it's also a life lesson that life is not always a bowl of cherries. And you could have made the kids happy by maybe having the thing on like we're doing, have a video of the Easter Bunny and stuff and show it citywide or something like that. And put it on the local channels and do something. But I just think it was, I think it was not the right thing to do. And it's done. So I just hope nobody got infected because of it. And let's not do it again. Let's not do what Gina said, which is look for an excuse to violate the right thing to do in the protocols. But with that, I have to segue in this segment, you had given, I guess, City Councilor Peckham some kudos, because he asked if those figures were accurate, which we all got a laugh on the first segment. when are figures from the city of Fall River ever right? And supposedly they're saying they're not looking at the 2.5 override this year, which I'm not sure of. But that brings me to another thing. In one of our conversations I had with someone, they said they were speaking to another individual who talked to the mayor, and the mayor said the numbers were fluid. That's absolute BS. Numbers aren't fluid. Numbers are numbers. 2 is 2, 4 is 4, 5 is 5. Those are numbers.
Right.
That's the problem that we have in the city of Fall River. Every time our financial team gets up there, they say we have terms that have never been heard before, like magic money. And money appears and disappears. That's not the way a budget's supposed to be run. Now, listen, I understand that the budget, they're not all hard numbers, but you should be able to look in your bank account and your checking account and know how much money you have on hand. And that's not fluid. The amount of money we have, now if you want to make a projection for a budget like we do for healthcare, you have to project the estimated cost, and there are actuarials, and you can have a higher projection or lower projection for income that's going to come in, like excise taxes and state aid. So you look at a reasonable amount. There are professionals who do that. Like we did with the 5.7 figure in healthcare, not the 8 that Mary Sahady used to misrepresent the city council. And this is what disturbs me. They have done the Goebbels method of propaganda. They have told this lie so often that the city council believes it. They do not demand a hard number. They do not demand to say, how much money do we have in the bank? How much? Show me the accounts. How much money do we have in every single account that we can say, this is in a bank, this is in a fund? And then let's look at what we're projecting in our budget for incoming money. And let's get some professionals in to say what is a acceptable actuarial projection for these numbers. And that's how you come up with a realistic budget. This bullshit of going in and saying, well, we got a $4.7 million, well, we won't need it. We're going to find some money. And as Lou Pacheco said when he was here, well, we're going to get magic money. I watched somebody to get a hold of Lou Pacheco and have him explain what magic money really is and where does it come from. I think I know, Rick. I have a theory. They have money. They move money around all the time, and they rob it from Peter to pay Paul. But and then you had another conversation with an individual who said that they had a surplus and they don't really have a deficit. And well, I direct that individual to the PEC meeting. Did the mayor not say that they're dealing with nickels and dimes? They don't have any money. That's why they're looking at the GI. That's why they're doing this. That's why they're doing that. He bemoaned the financial condition of the city. So now he goes on another show and says, well, it's not as bad as I think. And we change the numbers all the time. That's not the way to run a city. It's not the way. You can't run your household that way. And it disturbs me that this has become the status quo. And when they go before the council, they accept it. And last night again, she said, I don't have those numbers. And my response to that statement is, why not? You were there to talk about the city's financial condition and the upcoming budget. Why did you not have those numbers?
And the city council accepted that. They just accepted the fact that she didn't have the numbers. And as a matter of fact, Cliff Ponte even said, I'm not sure if you'll have this information, and that's okay. No, it's not okay. She's got to have the information. This is why people were getting so aggravated last night with the city council meeting as they were able to view it. I mean, people, probably appreciated because of the Zoom system that they did. And again, I'll give them kudos for that. But for a city councilor to turn around and tell the chief financial officer of this city that says, I don't have the numbers, that's okay. You know what? We'll work with that. We're not going to use this excuse for every situation. We're not going to say, well, because of this crisis, I don't have it. Because of this crisis, I don't have it. Because of this crisis, you're sitting in that chair, though. So, tell me what's going on. And while we're on this, I just received a message, which I've got to say. This is a message that came in from a viewer to say, you can run on, we're going to be transparent, and we're going to run by policy, not politics, and do the complete opposite. That's what people are saying. People who voted for him were diehard Coogan supporters, and now they're saying they're not. The same person also said that there are city councilors that will support this mayor no matter what he does. And we've seen that already. And, I save all of these messages deliberately because I want to look back at them and see, is there any change for what's going on? But this is a person who's heavily involved in the city, and they're feeling that this mayor is not being transparent. And obviously, last night proved it again. And this person said it was a fiasco. The whole finance thing about the budget was a fiasco. And I agree. From what I saw, I wasn't happy.
Well, and you're 100% right, CJ, because as you said, I don't want to hear it. Shame on Cliff Ponte for saying, well, we don't have the numbers and we'll work with that. No, you can't work with that. If you don't have numbers and you don't have any idea where we're going, that's the reason we're always in a crapper. We're always in a deficit. Every 4 or 5 years, we're running a deficit. Why? Nobody knows how we got into the deficit. Nobody ever asks why. There has to be numbers. I mean, let's face it. Like I said, they know how much money they have in their accounts. Just, it's simple addition. Even Mary Sahady could probably do that. If you made her, bring down all the accounts. We got so many million here, so many million here. This is what we got in the stabilization fund, this stabilization fund. We can add them all up. Not difficult. You can do it on your hand calculator. So we know how much money we got on hand. Now we say this is the estimate. This is the projected range of estimates for income and real estate tax, for excise tax, for all the other income.
And she went over that last night. She did bring up some of that. She's right now the city's at 71% of expected. She says they always try to be as accurate as possible, and this got me. And we try to be as conservative as possible. Well, if she was,
yes. Well, yeah. Only when it suits her.
Right, because if she was that conservative with the retirement board, I'll tell you right now, you'd be swimming in mud. Okay.
And the other thing is that she also misrepresented. She was conservative. That 8% was an absolute lie. She represented.
Right.
Makes that condition look worse, and that's the problem. The only thing that's fluid is their BS, because it flows from one meeting to another. And I wasn't satisfied with her percentage. I want to know what the low end of that, what they did, what they projected. Did they have a low and a high end? And how did they actuarially come to whatever number they're at for their projection for the budget?
No, I agree. I agree. That's the problem.
Listen, if we do that, we've got only one way to go if we're reasonable about what we have and what we've got coming in, and we're conservative.
I agree.
The only way we can go is to get better, because the federal government is going to provide bailout money to states and communities. So if you come up with a good, solid, bare bones budget based on good projections for incoming and an exact account of the money we have now, we would have an accurate financial picture, which we haven't had in decades because of Mary Sahady and the financial teams we've had.
Well, I'll tell you.
The only thing we ever had an accurate financial picture is when Alan Silver did it and gave it to these projected mayors, these mayors who got elected, and only one mayor ever paid attention, and that was Bob Correa.
Yeah.
And that's when he implemented a belt tightening system, and there's no transparency. And I take exception to him saying numbers are fluid. They're not fluid. They can't be fluid. There's nothing more fluid than the healthcare system. But we have actuarials that make accurate projections on the healthcare system, and obviously they're going to probably be off now because of the pandemic. But the reality is there is a method to do this, and we're paying, and she got another pay raise to do this.
And last night she was, very forthright with the fact that we're at 71% of collections, and that's as close as we're supposed to. We should be at 75%, but we're at 71%. And she's actually expecting those collections to be lower in the final quarter of this year. One of the areas that they're expecting, and I couldn't understand this when she said it, one of the areas they're expecting less revenue is in the marijuana money. They're expecting that to go down. But because of their projections, they'll probably be close to what they projected, which means they projected really low, which is what she's saying. She does conservative projections. But did she project how, you couldn't project anything about this coronavirus. We didn't know. Even the state government doesn't know. And here's the thing that bothers me. They're talking about this bailout money from the federal government. We've heard it from a couple of elected officials. We have one, maybe two grant writers who haven't even started writing for the grants to get that bailout money. You know what? The PPP program, the Payment Protection Plan, has already given away millions and millions of dollars. As a matter of fact, people are upset because hedge fund people are filing for that money. And there are small businesses that can't get these applications in, and it's supposed to be for the small businesses. And the money's draining fast. That's going to happen to Fall River. I firmly believe that what's going to happen to Fall River is that bailout money they're expecting, we're not going to get because we didn't get the paperwork in on time. Just like we didn't get the paperwork on time on the CSO project. And that's why we're paying for it fully. And that's where the raises are coming from, according to what was said by Mary Sahady. We need these raises. We need these extra funds because we've got to pay for the CSO project and the debt service on that. Again, not my problem that your management of this government didn't do it right. That's your problem. Don't put the burden on me. That's your problem. The person who did it should have been fired. But instead, you let him retire and you let him buy 8 years back of time that he wasn't entitled to because he had been paid for it and he never had to pay it back.
Well, that's 100% absolutely correct. Not only did he not get fired, he stayed on a job for another 15 years or so, or 20 years after he didn't get. So Again, the taxpayer is being victimized by the incompetence of government, and the incompetent who caused it is still working, and he got pay raises, and he got to retire, as Mary Sahady continues to get paid look, this is not anything new. I had 2 arbitrations against the city, and I had to prove ability to pay. We did all the numbers. They constantly under-project income when they want to pad the budget. Look, we're only getting this much when they know they're getting double. So then they can say, well, the budget's right on track, and then they got $4 or $5 million to play with later on down the road. It's not theory, it's fact. Because twice we went to arbitration against the city of Fall River, and we approved, and we proved they had the ability to pay, and won both of those arbitrations. I did a 10-year runoff of what their projected was in the budget for excise tax, and they under-projected every year. And they knew full well they were going to get more money. So when it suits her, she'll be conservative. When it suits her, she'll be aggressive. But what they do is manipulate money. What they don't do is ever find out the reason why we continue this insanity of always running out of money, because they don't want to. Because it's because of them we run out of money.
Exactly.
They don't care about the taxpayer. The reality is, where's the council in this crisis demanding a full independent audit, forensic audit?
Oh God, you're saying that swear word again.
Get ready, because I'll tell you what, they're going to get, if they do a forensic audit, there may be more feds down at City Hall with some handcuffs of some people, especially from our financial team. Yeah,
well, while you're on this financial, forensic audit, I had conversation just before going on the air with a couple of people in the city who want to start to get together now and have meetings via Zoom. See, they're smart, to talk about repealing the CPA, an underride, and getting rid of this charter, which we've been talking about. Now, people are already they're sitting around and they're saying, what can we start doing now to make this happen? So guess what? It may happen. So, Mr. Mayor, if you're watching, understand something. The people are sick and tired of the way you keep jacking up the taxes. They're sick and tired of the way you keep jacking up the fees. And if they get an underride approved, you're screwed.
Well, it's not screwed. What you're doing is your feet are being held to the fire to actually run the budget the way it's supposed to be run, not continue the Mary Sahady method, which has been done since '91. They were supposed to fix this, do proper audits, and know where our money was when they lost that audit. That's what they promised the arbitrator. Oh, we're not going to lose money anymore. We're going to fix the system. Well, they never did. 91, 2008, again, they had to pay everybody for health care. Again, they lost $44,016. They had 5 accounts that were dormant for 25 years. She's still on a payroll. She's not only still on a payroll, she went from the person who audited, her firm audited the city, to a full-time position. She'll put in for a city retirement, and she continues to get pay raises and automatic pay raises, while the only thing she knows how to do is tax. She doesn't look for why this happened. No one has ever identified what happened to the 22 windows.
God forbid.
What happened with Dominion? What happens now? And the reality is, that's the reason we continue down this path of insanity. Because what is the definition of insanity, CJ?
Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome.
And that's exactly what we do every day in the government in the city of Fall River. And it's time for the citizens to step up. If they won't do it on their own, let's make them do it.
Exactly. Well, it looks like we're out of time. People, thanks for watching. We'll see you on Friday, and I hope you stay safe. And remember, stay angry.
And healthy.